Lagos never truly went to sleep. Its streets pulsed with energy, horns blaring, Afro beats pouring from street corners, and crowds moving like a living tide. And above this electric chaos lived one man untouched by the frenzy Chukwuemeka. At 32, he was tall, sharply handsome, and obscenely wealthy. The only son of Chief Nwobi, a billionaire with investments from Port Harcourt to Nairobi, Chuka was every bit the opposite of his father. Sukimura, where Chief Nwobi stood for discipline and legacy, Chuka embodied thrill and indulgence. Fast cars, endless parties, and an ever-revolving cast of beautiful women. This was his lifestyle. On any given weekend, you could find him lounging in rooftop clubs with celebrities or speeding down Lekki roads in his matte black Ferrari. Designer labels hung on his frame like armor, and he changed luxury cars like he did moods. Bentleys today, Rolls-Royce tomorrow. One night it was champagne aboard a private yacht in Dubai with an A-list actress. The next, he was whispering promises into a beauty queen's ear in a secluded VIP lounge. He didn't believe in love. For Chuka, relationships were short-lived transactions. Temporary thrills, his heart was barricaded behind years of distrust and disinterest. But this night was different. Chuka sat in the one place he avoided, the study of Chief Nwobi. The scent of leather and old money filled the room, and the walls were adorned with plaques and portraits of power. Chuka hated that room. It was a shrine to everything he never wanted to become. Chief Nwobi, regal in a gray agbada and perfectly shaped salt and pepper beard, sat behind a massive carved desk, fingers steepled and eyes sharp. "I've made my decision." His deep voice cut through the silence. Chuka raised an eyebrow. "This should be good." "You have 1 year," Chief Nwobi declared. "Find a wife, or I give everything to someone else." "What?" "You heard me. 1 year. Find a woman, marry her, and prove that you are more than a reckless playboy." Chuka sat up, stunned. "Marriage won't fix anything." "No," Chief Nwobi replied, "but it will make you accountable. A man who cannot commit to a woman cannot manage a billionaire empire." Chuka clenched his jaw. His father was serious. 1 year to prove he could build something meaningful or lose everything. The thought was suffocating. He didn't believe in forever. Feelings faded. People left. He'd seen it in his circle. Glamorous weddings turned bitter divorces. His solution? A shortcut. He didn't need a real wife. He needed a fake one. A plan formed quickly in his mind. He would find someone to pose as his fiancée, just long enough to convince his father and the board. 1 year of pretending, then part ways. Simple, clean, effective. Later that night, as he left the office, Chuka strolled through the parking garage toward his sleek black Lamborghini. The air was cool, the city glittering in the distance. Then he saw her. Huddled near the security post in a blanket of shadows, a young woman slept on the concrete floor, her arms wrapped tightly around herself for warmth. Her clothes were threadbare, her face gaunt with hunger and exhaustion. Chuka frowned. "Hey!" He nudged her shoe. She jolted awake, eyes wide with panic. Please don't hurt me." "I'm not here to hurt you," Chuka said coolly. "What are you doing in my parking lot?" She hesitated. Then in a tired voice she replied, "I have nowhere else to go." "What's your name?" "Ijoma," she whispered. "Ijoma. Why are you sleeping outside my office?" She looked away, clearly embarrassed. "I used to work here, as a cleaner. I lost the job, and when they kicked me out of the staff quarters, I had nowhere to go." Chuka studied her, early 20s. Under the dirt and weariness, he could tell she had once been beautiful. Her voice was calm, but her eyes told stories of pain. "My parents died 2 years ago. I was in university, mass communication. I had to drop out when the fees stopped coming. I've been doing odd jobs ever since." Her words struck something deep within him. She wasn't lazy, she had just been knocked down too many times. And suddenly, Chuka saw more than a tired girl. He saw opportunity. He needed a fake fiancée. She needed a way out. "What if I told you I can change your life?" he asked. She blinked. "What?" "1 year. Pretend to be my fiancée. I'll give you a place to live, money, Help you get back to school. Ioma's eyes widened. You want me to pretend? Yes, just pretend. Nothing real. No strings. She hesitated. You promise nothing inappropriate? Chuka chuckled. Don't flatter yourself. This is business. Behind closed doors, we live separate lives. She should have said no. It sounded absurd, like something out of a Nollywood script. But she had no roof over her head, no family, no hope. This deal might be her only ticket back to the life she lost. She stood, brushing dust from her faded dress. I'll do it, she said, her voice firmer now. Chuka smirked. Smart girl. But I have conditions, she added quickly. He raised a brow. Let's hear them. 1, I want to go back to school. I need funding for my degree. Done. 2, there are boundaries. No touching, no funny business. Relax, Chuka replied, smiling. I have no interest in falling in love. Ijeoma exhaled deeply, unaware that her entire world was about to change forever. By the next morning, Ijeoma Eze had officially crossed into a life she never imagined. Chuka's chauffeur-driven SUV whisked her away from the streets she once wandered, straight into the gates of his opulent mansion in Banana Island. Her eyes widened as the gates opened to reveal a sprawling 3-story villa, painted in ivory and trimmed in gold. A fountain stood proudly in the center courtyard, flanked by an array of expensive cars, Range Rovers, G-Wagons, and one particularly intimidating Rolls-Royce. Clutching her only bag, a worn-out tote filled with second-hand clothes and a few toiletries, Ijeoma stepped into the grand marble-floored foyer. The scent of fresh roses lingered in the air. A butler in a crisp black suit approached with a dignified bow. Welcome, miss. I am Mr. Benson. I'll show you to your quarters. Ijeoma followed him silently, trying to absorb the sheer size and grandeur of everything around her. When he opened the door to her new room, she nearly gasped. A queen-size bed with golden posts, a chandelier dripping crystal from the ceiling, a closet already stocked with designer clothes, perfumes, and shoes worth more than she had earned in a year. This must be a dream, she whispered. But it wasn't. She reminded herself, this was a job, a performance, a means to an end. The plan was simple. Play the loving fiancé in public, stay invisible in private. That evening, Chuka entered the living room, adjusting his sleek black suit. Get dressed, he said. Ijeoma blinked. For what? We're attending an event. It's time society meets the love of my life. Her stomach flipped. She hadn't prepared for this part. Not the cameras, not the people, not the act. She hurried into the closet and selected a modest but elegant navy blue gown. Her hands trembled as she applied light makeup, brushed her hair, and stepped into unfamiliar heels. When she walked back into the living room, Chuka looked her over and raised a brow. Well, he smirked, you clean up better than I expected. Ijeoma rolled her eyes. Thanks, I guess. He extended his arm. Let the show begin. Outside, the paparazzi were already in place. As they exited the car at the luxurious Echo Grand Ballroom, camera flashes exploded in every direction. Ijeoma held tightly to Chuka's arm, her smile shaky, her mind screaming. The ballroom sparkled with wealth. Crystal chandeliers, red velvet carpets, and a sea of Lagos elite dressed in couture. Conversations floated through the air, full of business deals, political gossip, and whispers of scandal. Just smile and stay close, Chuka whispered through his practiced grin. Remember, you're madly in love with me. Ijeoma scoffed quietly. Right, madly. Then came the first real test. Chuka, my guy. A tall, charismatic man in a navy suit swaggered toward them. His smile was infectious, his energy magnetic. Boma, Chuka greeted him. Boma turned his attention to Ijeoma, eyeing her with interest. And who is this vision of beauty? Ijeoma, she said, extending her hand. Instead of shaking it, Boma kissed the back of her hand slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. A pleasure. So you're the one who tamed the wild lion? Chuka's jaw ticked. Ijeoma noticed. She's my fiancée, Chuka said flatly, pulling her closer. Boma chuckled. Well, if you ever need a break from him, you know where to find me. Ijeoma raised her eyebrow and smiled sweetly. Noted. Chuka's grip tightened at her waist. She smirked. Oh, he didn't like that. The night rolled on in a blur of fake laughter, small talk, and champagne glasses. Ioma met countless strangers who wore polite smiles and judgmental eyes. But one encounter lingered longer than the others. A tall, poised woman in a blood-red gown intercepted Ioma while Chuka was speaking to a senator. "You must be the fiancé," the woman said, her smile too perfect to be real. "I'm Kemi Bakari, journalist." Ioma nodded cautiously. "I've followed Chuka's love life for years," Kemi said smoothly. "He doesn't do relationships. And you," she tilted her head, "you don't look like someone who plays in this league." "I'm not playing," Ioma replied, voice steady. "This is real." Kemi's smile didn't falter. Be careful, sweetheart. Not everyone will be as nice as me." She walked away before Ioma could respond, but the warning had been clear. This world was full of predators and diamonds and silk, and she was walking right into their territory. Still, she survived the evening. She played the part. She wore the mask. And when they returned to the mansion, Chuka gave her a long look. "You did well tonight," he said. "Wasn't exactly fun." "No," he agreed. "But you held your own." For a brief moment, there was no performance, just a shared silence between two people pretending not to care. The sun rose slowly over Lagos the next morning, casting golden rays across the marbled floors of Chuka Nwobi's mansion. But today's light brought no comfort to Ioma. Her first public appearance as Chuka's fiancé had left her drained, her mind buzzing with names, stares, whispers, and Kemi Bakari's thinly veiled warning. But there was no time to rest. That morning, Chuka appeared in the doorway of her room, dressed in another one of his designer suits, looking entirely too comfortable for what he was about to propose. "We're going to my father's house," he said. Ijeoma sat up slowly. "What? Now?" Chuka gave her a half smile. "Time to meet the king." Her pulse quickened. Meeting Chief Nwobi was different. It wasn't society parties and flashing cameras. This was the man who had built an empire, who could smell lies and weakness like perfume. The man Chuka had spent his entire life rebelling against. She tried to steady her breath as she slipped into a conservative peach dress and low heels. As they drove toward the Nwobi estate, an even grander structure on the city's edge, Ioma kept her hands clenched in her lap. The gates of Chief Nwobi's mansion opened slowly, revealing a compound so vast it felt like its own country. Gold-lined windows, a fleet of black SUVs, tall marble pillars. It was a house built to intimidate. Inside the drawing room, Chief Nwobi sat like a statue of royalty, straight-backed, stern, and still. His agbada was navy and silver, perfectly pressed. His gaze, when it lifted from his newspaper, was sharper than any blade. "Dad," Chuka said casually, "meet my fiancé, Ijeoma." Ijeoma stepped forward, pulse thudding in her ears. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Chief Nwobi said nothing at first. His eyes scanned her like a document under a microscope. Then finally he spoke. "You're not like the others." Ijeoma blinked. "Sir?" "The women Chuka usually flaunts are shallow and loud. You seem different." She managed a faint smile. "I believe there's more to life than just status, sir." He nodded slowly. "I like that." Chuka looked like he'd just seen a ghost. "That's it?" he asked, incredulous. "You've questioned every woman I've ever brought near you and suddenly you're approving?" "For once your decision doesn't reek of foolishness," Chief Nwobi said. "She might be good for you." Ijeoma bit the inside of her cheek to hide her surprise, but when she glanced at Chuka, something in his expression made her heart skip. He was watching her differently, not as a tool in a scheme or a character in a performance. His gaze lingered a little longer, softer, curious, troubled. She looked away quickly. The visit ended with Chief Nwobi calling for lunch, insisting they stay. Ijeoma was seated beside Chuka at the long dining table, nervously spooning egusi soup onto her plate, unsure of whether to speak or remain silent. When they finally returned to Chuka's home, she collapsed onto her bed with a sigh. But sleep didn't come. Her thoughts raced. Despite all the luxury, the food, the silk pillows and polished floors. Something inside her was shifting. It was Chuka. He wasn't just the arrogant billionaire anymore. He was something else too, unexpectedly kind in small moments. When he brought her hot tea after the party, when he noticed she hadn't eaten and insisted she try the chef's special pepper soup, when he adjusted her dress tag before they stepped into a room full of strangers. And the way he had tensed when Boma kissed her hand, was that part of the act? Or something else? One evening, as they sat outside on the balcony watching the city lights glitter like stars trapped beneath glass, she turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" He didn't look away from the skyline. "Sure." "Why don't you believe in love?" His smirk faded. Silence stretched between them. "Because love is a scam," he said eventually. "People pretend, then they leave." She studied his profile, the shadowed jawline, the furrow between his brows. There was pain there, hidden under arrogance. "Not everyone leaves, Chuka." He turned to her then, their eyes locked. Neither of them said another word, but in that silence something shifted. Something real. For the first time in weeks, Yoma Eza felt almost settled. She had found a rhythm in the sprawling mansion. Early breakfasts, silent walks through the garden, evenings spent pretending in front of Chuka's elite friends. And through it all, Chuka Nwobi had begun to unravel, bit by bit. He still wore arrogance like a second skin, but beneath it, she saw glimpses of vulnerability. The boy behind the billionaire, the man who had once believed in love, only to be taught never to trust it again. But just as Iyoma was beginning to breathe, the past arrived, uninvited. Chuka was in his office one evening, leafing through business documents when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the caller ID, and everything in him froze. Amarachi Okiki. Her name alone cracked open a vault of buried memories. His first love, his deepest betrayal. She hadn't contacted him in years, not since she left Nigeria for a postgraduate program in London and broke his heart without a second glance. And now she was back. That night, Iyoma was curled on the couch with a book when the front door swung open. Her eyes lifted, and there she was. A woman in a deep emerald gown, tall, elegant, with the kind of polished confidence that filled a room. Amarachi. She strolled in like she still belonged, and Chuka followed close behind, clearly rattled. "What is she doing here?" Iyoma asked quietly. "I came to see an old friend," Amarachi said with a rehearsed smile. She turned to Iyoma, her gaze sharp but sugar-coated. "And you must be the fiancé. How charming." Iyoma stood cautiously. "Yes, I am. And you are?" "Amarachi Okeki," she said, "the first woman who ever broke his heart." Chuka winced. Iyoma felt a quiet storm rise in her chest. "Well," Amarachi continued, brushing invisible dust off her gown, "I just had to see for myself if the rumors were true." Chuka stepped forward. "That's enough, Amarachi." She held up her hands, feigning innocence. "Relax, I just wanted to talk." The tension hung heavy. Iyoma excused herself, but not before glancing at Amarachi one more time. There was something predatory in her expression. This woman had not come for reconciliation. She had come to reclaim territory. In the lounge, Amarachi sat across from Chuka, her tone dropping. "You're really engaged to her." Chuka stayed silent. "You don't do love, Chuka," she whispered. "That's not who you are, remember?" He leaned forward, jaw tight. "Don't act like you know me anymore." "I did once," she said softly, "and I left because I had dreams, opportunities. You refused to follow." "You left without even looking back," he said coldly. Amarachi's voice faltered. "I was young. I thought we had more time." Chuka shook his head. "You made it clear I wasn't part of your future." She reached out, touching his hand gently. "But I never stopped loving you." He pulled away. Across town the next day, Amarachi met with someone just as calculating, Kemi Bakari, the same journalist who had warned Iyoma at the gala. "Your instincts were right," Amarachi told her. "That engagement is fake." Kemi's eyes gleamed. "I've started digging into the girl's past. Her real story? She used to be a cleaner in Chuka's company. He found her sleeping in the parking lot." Amarachi's perfectly arched brows lifted. Perfect. Let's expose the truth. Kemi nodded. Once this goes public, it's over. They clinked wine glasses in silent agreement. Their game had begun. Back at the mansion, Iyoma felt a shift in the air. Chuka had grown distant again, his thoughts clearly elsewhere. And although Amarachi acted friendly in front of her, Iyoma could feel the eyes watching, measuring, waiting to strike. Something was coming. And it would hit hard. It started with a simple vibration. One phone notification. Iyoma Eze was in the living room, curled up with a throw blanket, when her screen lit up with a headline that stopped her heart. Who is Chuka Nwobi's fiancé? The shocking truth about Iyoma Eze's past. Her stomach dropped. With trembling fingers, she tapped the article. And there it was, her life, exposed and picked apart for the world to consume. Details she thought were buried. Her stint as a cleaner. Her nights spent homeless behind the office building. Her parents' death, her dropout from university. They had even dug up old, grainy photos of her in her janitor uniform, pushing cleaning carts in the background of the very company she was now supposed to inherit by marriage. She kept scrolling. Big mistake. She's clearly a gold digger. She must be really good at pretending. Chuka can do better. Some comments were kind, many were not. Each line felt like a slap. Then came the video. Kemi Bakari, smiling graciously before a reporter's mic, oozed faux concern. It's just surprising. Chuka has never taken any woman seriously before, and now this. I hope for his sake this isn't just another mistake. People change, I suppose. Iyoma's blood went cold. This was deliberate. Just then, the front door slammed. Heavy, fast footsteps. She turned and saw Chuka, phone in hand, fury in his eyes. He threw the device onto the glass table. It cracked. The entire internet thinks you're using me, he barked. I never asked for any of this. Iyoma stood, heart racing. You think that matters? My board is calling. Investors. Even my father. And what do you believe, Chuka? She asked quietly. He paused. Just long enough. Her heart broke. Later that evening, a new message arrived. Not from Chuka, from Chief Nwobi. We need to talk, alone. 9 a.m., my residence. Iyoma's hands shook as she read the text. A summons. The next morning, she entered the patriarch's massive study with dread pressing down on her chest. He was already seated, composed as ever, his fingers interlaced over a stack of reports. He gestured for her to sit. A long pause. Then, why are you really here, Iyoma? She swallowed hard. Sir, is this about money? The question pierced deeper than expected. It wasn't anger in his voice, just disappointment. I'm not here for his wealth, she said slowly. Chief Nwobi leaned forward. The media won't stop. They will tear you apart and Chuka with you. Are you strong enough to endure that? Iyoma looked away, throat tight. I've met many women who saw Chuka as a stepping stone, he continued. But you've suffered, and yet you walk with your head high. He stood, pacing slowly. I don't hate you, Iyoma. In fact, I admire your strength. But if this is only an act, I suggest you walk away now, because this family is not for the faint-hearted. Iyoma rose shakily. It started as an arrangement, she admitted. He needed a fiancé. I needed a way out. Chief Nwobi didn't react. But somewhere along the line, I fell in love with him. Silence. I didn't mean to. It just happened. And now, I don't know what to do. She blinked away tears as she turned to leave. But just as her hand reached for the doorknob, the large screen on the wall lit up with a news flash. Breaking news. Chuka Nwobi defends fiancé in fiery press statement. Both she and Chief Nwobi turned to watch. There was Chuka, standing at a podium, flanked by reporters. His voice cut through the static. Let me be clear. Iyoma Eze is not a gold digger. She is not after my money. And anyone who believes otherwise doesn't know me or her. She is the strongest, most sincere person I have ever met. This engagement is real, and she deserves your respect. The video ended. Ijoma stood frozen, eyes wide, breath shallow. "He defended me," she whispered. Behind her, Chief Nwobi gave a rare small nod. "Then I suppose it's time to stop pretending." Tears welled in Iyoma's eyes. She had thought no one would stand up for her. She was wrong. Iyoma Eze left Chief Nwobi's estate with her emotions in freefall. The video of Chuka's public defense replayed in her mind over and over. He hadn't hesitated. He hadn't faked it. His voice had been filled with conviction, with sincerity. But it was too late. The lie they built together had come crashing down, and now everything felt tainted. Back at the mansion, silence greeted her. The staff offered tight-lipped smiles. The air was too still, too heavy. She walked to the living room and sat at the table. Her eyes fell on the envelope Chuka had given her months ago, the one containing the money promised for the deal. She hadn't touched it. Not once. And now she wouldn't. She grabbed a pen and wrote a letter. No dramatics, just the truth. "Dear Chuka, thank you for everything. For the roof, the meals, the safety, the defense. But I can't do this anymore. This deal, this lie, it has cost me more than I expected. I'm leaving the money. You never owed me anything. Goodbye, Iyoma." She placed the envelope and the letter neatly on the glass table. One last glance around the mansion that had become a strange kind of home. Then she walked out with her small bag. No chauffeur, no fanfare. Just her, the city, and heartbreak. Later that evening, Chuka Nwobi returned home, expecting her to be waiting like always, curled on the couch, reading. But the room was empty. The silence rang loud. "Ijoma," he called. No answer. Then he saw it, the envelope with his name written in delicate handwriting. He picked it up, unfolding the note. As he read, his heart dropped. She had left, and she hadn't taken the money. He stood frozen, her words echoing in his mind. His jaw clenched. Then came the burn in his chest. Regret, panic, something more dangerous than pride. He grabbed his keys and stormed toward the door, only to stop at the sound of a familiar voice. "Chuka!" He turned sharply. Amarachi Okeki stood in the doorway, draped in a figure-hugging silk gown, eyes calm but calculating. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. "I came to see you," she said, stepping forward, gaze sweeping the room. "She's gone, isn't she?" He didn't answer. "She left you," Amarachi continued. "That means she never belonged in this world. She is beneath you, Chuka." He glared at her. "Don't." Amarachi placed a hand gently on his chest. "You and I understand each other. We were built from the same world. She'll never fit." Chuka took a step back. "No, Amarachi, we're done. We've been done." She blinked, stunned by the firmness in his voice. "We were young," she tried again. "I made a mistake. I left. But I'm here now." He shook his head. "You didn't just leave. You walked away without caring what it did to me. You don't get to come back and rewrite history." "I love you," she whispered. Chuka's jaw clenched. "And I love her." Amarachi's expression collapsed into disbelief. "You love a girl who used to mop floors?" she spat. "I love a woman who stood by me when the world turned its back," he replied coldly. "A woman who had nothing but still gave me everything." Amarachi's voice trembled. "You're choosing her. Over me." "Yes," he said, "and it's not even a hard choice." Without another word, Chuka turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. He had wasted enough time. Now he had to find her. Chuka Nwobi drove like a man possessed. The city lights blurred past his windshield, honks and shouts echoing around him, but all he could hear was the silence she left behind. Iyoma Eze was gone, and this time she hadn't run out of fear or desperation. She had left out of heartbreak. His mind raced with questions. Where would she go? She had no home, no family. But then it hit him, the one place she spoke of with longing in her voice, the place she had once belonged to before life unraveled, the university. Chuka slammed on the brakes and changed direction, weaving through traffic with reckless speed. Minutes later, he pulled into the quiet parking lot outside the campus gates. The sun was setting, casting an amber glow over the red brick buildings. And there, on a lonely bench, sat Ioma. Her small duffel bag rested at her feet. She wore a plain dress, her hair tied in a bun, her eyes distant. She was staring at the Faculty of Mass Communication, the very building she had once dreamed of entering again as a student. Chuka stepped out of the car. She heard the door slam but didn't turn. When his footsteps stopped beside her, she looked up slowly, eyes wide, lips parting in disbelief. "Chuka?" He didn't speak. He just pulled her into a tight embrace, one arm locking around her back, the other pressing her head against his chest. She gasped softly. "You were wrong," he whispered, voice cracked with emotion. She blinked up at him. "What?" "You were wrong to leave," he said again, his words trembling. "You were wrong to think I didn't feel the same." Her breath hitched. "Chuka, I love you, Ioma," he said, voice steady now. "Not because of the deal. Not because of my father. Not for appearances. I love you because you see me. The real me." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I tried to ignore it. Tried to pretend it was part of the act. But you made me feel something I thought I'd buried a long time ago." She stared at him, heart pounding in her chest. "You love me?" she whispered. He cupped her face gently, wiping away a tear. "With everything I have." A shaky laugh escaped her lips, and before either of them could speak another word, she leaned in and kissed him. Softly, slowly. This time there was no deal. No conditions. No lies. Just two people holding on to the truth they had tried to bury. They didn't speak much after that. Words weren't needed, not under the open sky, not after everything they had endured. And somewhere amidst the chaos of Lagos traffic and 1,000 blinking city lights, love, raw, imperfect, and unexpected, finally found its voice. The viral video of Chuka Nwobi declaring his love for Ioma Eze had swept through Lagos like wildfire. In minutes, it was all over social media, reposted, dissected, praised, and criticized. But one person watched it more closely than most. Kemi Bakari, the same journalist who had tried to break them, sat at her cluttered desk, her fingers motionless above her laptop keys. The screen played the video again. Chuka, bold and unflinching, telling the world that Ioma was not a gold digger, that she was the woman he loved. Kemi leaned back, stunned. This wasn't the ending she'd planned. She had chased the story like it was scandalous gold. She had believed Ioma was an imposter, someone climbing into wealth on a ladder of lies. But as she watched the way Chuka's voice broke when he said Ioma's name, as she saw the desperation in his eyes while searching for her, something cracked inside her too. This wasn't a scam. This wasn't manipulation. This was real. She grabbed her phone and called her editor. "Pull the investigation," she said flatly. "What? Are you serious? That story's fire." "There's no story anymore," Kemi said, already closing her notes. "There's just love." Meanwhile, across town, another woman watched the same video in silence, but with a heart full of rage and regret. Amarachi Okeke stood on the balcony of her penthouse, the lights of Lagos glittering in the distance. Her face was unreadable. Her suitcase lay packed behind her. She had played every card. She had whispered poison into Chuka's ears, called in favors, and even tried to seduce him back into the past. She had weaponized memory and status, and lost. Because Chuka hadn't chosen the elegant woman with a degree from London. He had chosen the girl who once slept outside his office. Tears stung Amarachi's eyes, but she blinked them away. She was still Amarachi, famous, wealthy, admired. But as she zipped her suitcase and took one last look at the city she tried to conquer again, she whispered the truth into the shadows. "For the first time in my life, I lost." And this loss wasn't like the others. It hurt. Back at the Nwobi mansion, celebration buzzed like electricity. Chuka had brought Ioma home, not as an actress in his scheme, but as the woman who now held his heart. Chief Nwobi welcomed her with a proud smile and a warm handshake. There were no lectures, no warnings. Only a quiet look that said, "Well done, my son." Plans began almost immediately. Vendors were booked, invitations sent, and the announcement that Chuka Nwobi, Lagos's most elusive bachelor, was getting married shook the city. But no one was more surprised than the woman at the center of it all. Ioma sat before her vanity one morning, fingers running over the embroidery on her bridal gown, the same way someone might trace dreams to make sure they're real. From homeless to loved, from cleaner to fiancé, from forgotten to unforgettable. And yet, despite the whirlwind, her heart was still calm. Not because everything had gone perfectly, but because for the first time she was exactly where she belonged, beside the man who had seen her at her worst and still chosen her. Not for pity, not for show, but for love. The wedding of Chuka Nwobi and Ioma Eze was unlike anything Lagos had seen in years. What had once begun as a fabricated engagement had transformed into the love story of the decade, and now the city was preparing to witness its fairy tale ending. The venue was an exquisite African estate tucked into the rolling outskirts of Lekki, surrounded by palm trees, marble statues, and fountains shaped like lions. Twinkling fairy lights hung from every arch, and gold and white drapes flowed like silk across the canopies. Yoruba drummers lined the walkway, their talking drums echoing through the warm afternoon air. Guests arrived in waves, business tycoons in majestic agbadas, Nollywood stars in glittering lace, governors and dignitaries seated side by side. But no one mattered more than the bride. When Ijeoma emerged from the bridal suite, the crowd fell silent. She wore a breathtaking Yoruba-inspired wedding gown cream-colored with gold embroidery that shimmered like sunlight on water. A coral bead necklace rested on her chest, and her gel was tied high, proud, and regal. Her smile, humble, radiant, real, was brighter than the chandelier-lit hall. She looked nothing like the girl who once hid in the shadows of Chuka's parking lot. She looked like a queen. At the altar, Chuka, dressed in a deeply woven wine-red agbada with gold threadwork and a matching fila cap, stood tall. His heart thudded in his chest as he watched Ijeoma walk toward him. His eyes never left hers. Chief Nwobi sat in the front row, his expression a mix of pride and something softer, something grateful. His son had not only chosen love, he had chosen well. When the priest asked if anyone objected, silence reigned. And when he said, "You may kiss the bride," Chuka didn't wait a second. He pulled Ijeoma gently but firmly into his arms and kissed her, deeply, publicly, and without fear. The guests erupted into cheers. Twitter exploded. From cleaner to queen, Lisa Eze is the definition of grace. They said it was fake, they said it was for show, but love? Love always speaks for itself. Chuka Nwobi finally fell, and it was beautiful. Even Kemi Bakari posted on her social feed, "Some stories are realer than headlines. Chuka and Ijeoma forever." Amarachi, watching from her hotel room in Johannesburg, turned off the live stream and closed her laptop. She smiled bitterly, wiped a tear, and whispered, "Be happy, Chuka." Back at the venue, the reception kicked into high gear. Fuji music played. Plates of jollof rice and grilled catfish circled the room. Dancers in traditional attire spun in colorful formations. Guests sprayed Nara notes as Ijeoma and Chuka danced like two souls who had waited their entire lives for this one night. Later under the stars, as the crowd thinned and music softened, Ijeoma leaned her head on Chuka's shoulder. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" she asked. He chuckled, kissing her temple. "Not in a million years." She smiled. "Neither did I." He lifted her chin, looking into her eyes with nothing but truth. "But I wouldn't change a thing." And as they kissed again beneath the golden lights of their wedding canopy, surrounded by love, laughter, and the life they never expected, both of them knew. Love doesn't always come the way you plan it, but when it's real, it finds you anyway. 3 months after their whirlwind wedding, the Nwobis settled into something far more precious than luxury or fame: peace. Gone were the whispers. Gone was the pretense. In its place, Iyoma Nwobi, formerly Eze, once dismissed as a cleaner now, walked confidently through Lagos as the woman who not only won a billionaire's heart, but helped him find his own. Their marriage wasn't perfect. There were moments of frustration, Chuka's temper when meetings dragged too long, Iwoma's tendency to bottle things up, but love had softened the edges of their differences. Their nights were filled with laughter, shared pillow conversations, and simple things like cooking together or arguing over what movie to watch. And slowly the world adjusted. The tabloids moved on to newer scandals. The headlines about gold digging were replaced with features about the power couple reshaping the Nwobi empire. Ijoma had enrolled back into university, this time as a full-time student, with the full support of her husband. She balanced coursework with foundation work, launching an initiative to help underprivileged young women find jobs, shelter, and a second chance. After all, she had been one of them not so long ago. And Chuka? He had changed too. His board meetings were still sharp and efficient, but now he ended them early to make it home in time for dinner. His nights of bottle service and after-hours lounges had been replaced by books on fatherhood and property law. One evening, as they sat on the veranda sipping hibiscus tea, Iyoma leaned her head against Chuka's shoulder. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "Miss what?" "The freedom, the wild nights, the recklessness." Chuka chuckled. "Not even a little." She glanced up, teasing. "Not even the Lamborghini you sold?" He looked down at her. "Baby, I've got something better now." "Oh yeah," she said, smirking. "What's that?" "You," he whispered. Iyoma blushed, even after all the attention, all the press, all the drama. His words still melted her. A moment passed. Then she added, "I'm pregnant." Chuka blinked, then blinked again. You're what?" "I'm pregnant," she said, eyes shining. Chuka shot up from his seat, practically knocking over his tea. "You're serious?" She nodded. He dropped to his knees in front of her, gently placing his hands on her stomach, as if afraid the moment would disappear if he didn't hold it. Tears shimmered in his eyes. The man who once believed love was a lie now held the very proof that love had not only saved him, but grown inside the woman he once thought would be nothing more than a temporary solution. Now she was his whole future, and he hers. They had started as strangers, then became actors, then partners, then lovers, and now a family. And as the stars glittered above the city that had once judged and doubted them, Chuka and Iyoma knew that this was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning.